Did you choose racing or did racing choose you?
Ooh, I think God chose racing for me.
Okay. Welcome to the Details Podcast. My name is Dan Williams, the host of the Details Podcast. And today, you're not going to believe it, but I have yet another special guest. I have Miss Mianna Wick, a race car driver who I'm super excited. I'm just going to jump right out and say this. I've interviewed a few women race car drivers, but much, much less than the men race car drivers. And if there's going to be one sport where I think women can compete just as even on an even playing field, where there's no identity out there, I think that sitting behind the wheel of a race car is absolutely where that's going to happen. So for people who are just meeting you right now, Mianna Wick, who are you and what is this chapter in your life right now?
Yeah. Well, that's the fun thing. The chapter that I'm in right now is specifically a rebuilding phase, a chapter of a comeback. And the fun thing is I get to be involved in this journey and wait to see where God takes it.
Well, your message right now is driven to race, called to speak and living by faith. Which piece is speaking the loudest right now?
Absolutely, the living by faith. I mean, coming through a journey like I have and coming into a comeback and a rebuild phase, that's all about faith right there.
You know, I think I would have to have some faith if I was in that race car going that fast, sitting that close to the ground. I've done a couple of hot laps with professional drivers. And in the passenger seat, I tell you what, it is terrifying. So I can see.
Yes.
They say, what do they say? There's no atheists in the foxhole or in the cockpit of a race car.
Oh man, yeah, that right seat driving, that can that can get you some adrenaline, that's for sure.
What do you want people to understand about this season before we even get into the racing part? And I'm talking about the season of your life.
The season of my life, it's a huge step in trust and faith in God, but it's also very exciting. I didn't ever think that I would be in this phase to be able to even come back to something so impactful and meaningful into my life that I have such a huge passion for. So to be even able to rebuild is just absolutely exciting and phenomenal.
All right. What chapter are we meeting today? Are we meeting the race driver, the survivor, the speaker, or all three?
Definitely all three. I literally do so many jobs all in one day. I was just thinking about that earlier this morning about how I'm helping with the family business, going out and spreading fertilizer, and then I'm coming back, helping my mom, doing all this podcast interview here. I'm going to be working out, working on the athletic part of becoming a race car driver, and then going into dealing with promotions and next steps, dealing with emails about all the racing stuff, on the phone call with my mechanic of getting right calls for my engine. It's everything all in one in a single day.
Touch base real quick on that fertilizer thing. What are we doing spreading around fertilizer? And tell me a little bit about this family business because you got to have the
Yeah.
the uh, engine behind the engine.
Yeah, to be honest, it's never been my passion. It's never really been something that I've really wanted to do, to be honest, but it was a family business. My grandpa actually started it with my dad in '79, and they went out and they would get a big commercial, big boom, like, our booms are, like, 75 feet wide, and so these are like massive trucks that we're talking about. And we go and we spread nitrogen, potash, phosphate, that kind of thing for farmers in the area. And so my dad took over that. And later in his years, he started getting cancer. And so he needed some help around the family business. And so my husband and I actually joined. And now it's my husband and I's business full time. And we just go and take care of local farmers.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Now do you get, like, hooked up when the crops come in with some really good, vegetables?
Yes, I mean, even even more so, we have family farmers in the area, so they're always like, "Oh, yeah, just go pilfer our farms and our fields out there," and here where I live, we have a really, really good sweet corn, and it's, like, super sweet because of our cold nights here, and so it's always a super big treat to get to go out and pilfer young, very good sweet corn.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so where are you located?
I'm located in a little town called Delta, Colorado. It's on the western side of Colorado, so where the nothing parts of happen in the state.
Gotcha, and how convenient. You don't even have to go out and put out your own garden, I would imagine, because everybody just gives you all of their vegetables.
Yeah, it's super fun and it's super awesome.
Nice, nice, nice. So now let's jump into the Wayback Machine. And I kinda wanna go back to your early, like, how you got into racing and how you found yourself in that position. So, take me back to the very beginning. What's kind of the first thing that you actually remember about racing in general that started to spark your interest, and how old were you?
Yeah. I was 10 years old. My family had been moving around, so we were kinda lost on the hobby end of things, and so my dad had actually built us a family go-kart that literally my mom, my sister, my dad, and I all hopped in the same go-kart, and we drove just out back on some dirt roads, and that's really where it all started.
How fun, how fun. Were you guys on a farm back then?
Yes and no. That time we had kinda been moving around, so at certain points of that time, we were not on a farm, we were just in a, hometown house in downtown, but then during that time, we had also moved back to actually where I live now in Delta, and there was so many farms that we could take it out to there.
Tell me tell so everybody was using the same cart and we'd have to take turns. I'm imagining that you were excelling over everybody else and that's why you got the driver's seat?
Actually, it's so funny. No, I was not digging karting at that point that much. I mean, I liked it. It was a fun activity, but it wasn't my passion. Like, I remember I was this tiny little girl, and my dad, whatever height he was, I could barely see. I could barely touch the pedals, just slopping around in the seat. And I was like, "This is no, I don't like this. I don't like the dust coming around." Like, it was okay, I liked it, but it wasn't my passion for sure at that point.
Hmm. So, hmm, that's not an answer that I was expecting. I thought this so how did it let's fast forward just a little bit. When did it start to feel like a passion, and when was there that aha moment where you were like, "This is something that I wanna do," and start practicing and, start becoming that obsession?
I think other people saw it way before I did, to be honest. When we had moved back here, my dad, being so obsessed over racing that he was, decided that he would actually pave a quarter-mile track in our backyard. And he's like, "We have to get the asphalt go-karts. We have to, do all the things the right way, get the new stuff." And when we had done that, I was actually in a lawnmower engine. It was like a Briggs& and Stratton, not super fast, but definitely asphalt, way better than the dirt stuff for me. And I would just go out there and spend hours upon hours in the go-kart. Like, literally, I would run the cart out of gas. And my family started really noticing then. They were like, "Wow, this is definitely her thing." Like, I hadn't really had a thing up to that point in my life, and so when they noticed this, they were, of course, ecstatic for me, but it kinda took some time for me to really realize that this really was as big a passion as it was for me.
And how old were you when you started, like, really getting that seat time?
I was about 11 when we started getting into the asphalt stuff, and then I was 12 when I hit my first race.
Okay. And then at what point was the moment when you were just like, "This is I'm gonna pursue this, and, like, I mean, it's not a typical there's a lot less people who do race car driving than, volleyball or cheerleading or softball or, whatever the case may be. And so I know, like, a lot of times when your peers are probably not out there doing the same thing too. But what was that moment that you were like, "Okay, this is what we're doing?"
Yeah. Actually, it took me a little bit, like I had kinda mentioned, I was always kind of a free spirit growing up. I never really had one thing that I was super into, so even as I really got into racing and really loved it, I never was like, "This is gonna be my thing for the rest of my life. This is gonna be my career. This is my deep-seated passion." Until I had started going to, like, all the uppity races, like, hitting the national scene, and that's really when I was like, "Wow, I love this, and I am forever addicted."
Okay. And so I would imagine that part of that addiction came from standing on the podium a couple times. Tell me about that first win that you can remember and the what it tasted like.
Yeah, it was crazy because my very first race that I had ever done, I took first place in. And so I look back on that and I just like my mind is literally blown because I'm like, how did this even happen? Like, it's just God given talent, to be honest, because I had no idea what I was even doing at that point. I just jumped into a local club race and raced my heart out. And that's when I hit first and I was like, "Wow, okay, this is cool. I can get on board with this."
Okay. So then we move from carts to cars. You went right from carts to the Ford, to the Formula Ford,
Yeah.
which is those are the ones that look like, kinda like an Indy car, but a little shrunk down, right?
They look kind of like an Indy car, but just the body, so no front wings or no rear wings.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about that transition because that seems like you really are going from a little cart to an actual car where aerodynamics and, like, a whole bunch of other stuff is gonna start to come into play. It's like the next step of serious. But tell me about the transition, how you got from the carts into that.
Going from carts to cars is a really hard transition, and I really believe that this is where a lot of drivers actually get stuck, that they can't actually get themselves to do what they need to do to get in a car. Thankfully, I had known Phil Giebler. He was actually Rookie of the Year in 2007 in IndyCar himself, and he did the whole karting circuit with me and was like, I think you really need to get in a car. And he pushed me to kind of take that next step. And so my very first time in a car was testing with Phil Giebler in a Formula Ford 1600.
Huh. First race, you win. First time in the Formula Ford car, you're with a pro. Um, what when you sat down in that seat? Like, what happened when you sat down in that new car, in that, like, you stepped up to the next level? What were you feeling inside?
First of all, I was not very comfortable. I am a huge person driving that I'm like, I like the way that I like my seat and everything needs to be just so. Like, I will spend hours getting it just like I like it. But this, first car test, it was just there were so many other people. We were just literally thrown into the car, and we literally had towels and blankets around me because I was so small, just to, like, push me forward enough in the car to be able to reach. And so my first instinct was, "This is unbelievably uncomfortable." But the second I had kinda calmed down and kinda just got on track, wasn't sitting in pits or anything anymore, it just became so much more evident that I was more comfortable in cars than I ever was in karts.
You were sitting on a phone book, basically, trying to reach
Basically,
the
yes.
pedals. That's so cool. So did it feel more like once you got out on the track and you're starting to move around in that car, did it feel like did it just kinda sink in and, like, you felt like you were a part of the car?
Yeah, It really did, and literally every step that I've made throughout the car journey, the next step, the higher I go, the faster the car, I just get more and more comfortable in it and feel at one with the car.
And, I think I've seen a maybe a quote in here as I was doing my research,
Mm.
and, you said that speed actually makes you feel calmer. How does that work?
Yeah, it's actually crazy with it actually happened in the Formula Ford 1600 for me. But when you're going and when you're driving on the track, there becomes this certain threshold that you no longer feel like you're going faster. You start to see things slow down and you start to feel things happen at a slower pace. I like to kind of describe it as like when you're watching something on a video or on a camera and you start like let's take a tire for instance. You see it going one direction and then as it starts speeding up it actually starts slowing down and going backwards and gives that visual effect. And that's how I feel like it actually feels to some degree inside of a car. The faster you go, the more things just envelop around you and you just become slower and more at one with the car.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, the in the zone,
Yes,
in
agreed.
flow, that's what they call it, that's what it is. So, okay, so you're in this car, it looks like it has to just feel cooler to be in the car that looks more like an Indy car, and then after that, we're gonna switch to the Mazda.
Yes. So from the Formula Ford 1600, I moved to a Formula Mazda, which the Formula Mazda is faster. It has more horsepower and more speed to it. But the biggest difference in those two cars is that the Formula Mazda has wings. So you can really get a lot more downforce under braking, under acceleration, and throughout corners.
So every step up you take, how much of a percentage of faster do you feel like you start going when you make the leap from a kart to the Formula Ford to the Mazda?
Yeah, feeling is definitely different than the actual factual stats, but feeling, I never felt like I took a doubling leap or anything, but that's what I basically did. It just, like I said, feels way more comfortable to me. Like it did feel a little bit faster. Like there was definitely points when I would get into a faster car that my crew chief would call it the permagrin. It would just instantly, a giant smile just come onto my face just because I just loved the speed and was just so addicted to it. But it never really felt like the speed translated to the feelings.
And how about from just like a technical standpoint? What did you start noticing like as you're going up the ladder in the difference of the way cars handled and now you're starting to look at more, I imagine every step that you take more into the analytics and the science behind it, not just sitting behind the wheel.
Right, absolutely. There is man, there's so much to say with that. When I was in karts, I definitely felt like my driving style was more like throwing it into the corner and just really pushing it to the edge and everything. And don't get me wrong, like with the cars that I'm in now, I'm definitely pushing it to the edge, but everything feels way slower, way more methodical. Like I'm not going to go out onto a track and just do my best. I'm going to go out on the track and know that I can do well. Like, I'm not going to just throw myself through a corner and hope it sticks. I'm going to go into that corner knowing 100% that I will come out of that corner with a clean car and a clean line.
And with these, like, was your pops part of the crew, like, still at this point? And, kind of it's not just about the driver who's out there, you gotta have the mechanic and the whole crew and, even as we start diving deeper into these things, um, tell me a little bit about that part of the story because that's gonna be fabulous.
Yeah, my dad and I were like besties, two peas in a pod. I mean, ever since I got into racing, he was so ecstatic. Like I mentioned, he was the reason that I got into this. Like he was already into the racing stuff. So for the fact that it became my passion, my dad was living vicariously through me, of course. And so once it became to the point where he couldn't really drive that much or keep up in speed or finances, he became my mechanic. And then after it moved from the point of being able to mechanic and tune the car to the way that it needed to be tuned, he became my sideline coach of just encouraging me and getting me through mentally throughout the days. But he always was as invested in the cars as he could be. He was always hands in, getting dirty as much as possible.
Were you, putting your hands in there and wrenching also? Do you do that side of the world?
Absolutely, and that's actually not common when you start talking to a bunch of drivers. Like, with my setup and with my crew chief, he was like, "I want to train you to actually understand the cars," because a lot of drivers can't make that translation from mechanic to driver. They talk just in 2 different complete languages. And so he's like, "I want you to actually get your hands deep into these cars so that you can understand better what these people are talking about." And so, all through the career that I was actually with my team, he actually had me take my IndyCar all the way down to bare necessities and then build it back up as we were building the engine, building cockpits, redoing some carbon fiber. I mean, I've had my hands in pretty much almost every facet of rebuilding a car that you can imagine.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. That like, I think it would make you more intimately know the machine that you're sitting on to, to have taken it that far down, which is pretty neat. What
Absolutely.
so out of when you were in the Mazda, what do you
Mhm.
think for you was the biggest like leveling up or the biggest change for you as a driver?
Yes. In the Formula Mazda, and actually in my whole car journey, the plan thus far has been get private seat time, like don't show your face until you're ready kind of a thing, and then hit a race and see where you stack up. And so in the Formula Mazda, that's kind of where we were in that series and in that season. And so I showed up to what was called SCCA's major tour, and it was their summer event. And I was very nervous going into it, but I also had this calmness of I didn't have to prove any certain thing. I just had to show what I had learned from my team. And so we get there, and the first day, the first main event, we were really struggling, honestly, with getting the car tuned like we needed it to be. And so it was a pretty competitive race that first day. We were back and forth. I took second place, and I was like, okay, I. This is kind of cool. Like, I feel kind of legit now. But then the second day we came back, it was a double header. So we raced Saturday and then we raced again on Sunday. And when I came that Sunday race, we got the car just completely dialed in, and I ended up winning by over 30 seconds. And when I came off, it was this absolute surreal moment that I was like, how am I here? How can I even be possibly doing this? Like some of those same feelings to winning that first race in the go kart that I was like, I don't feel like this should be happening, but it is. And it just made me feel like I'm in the right place at the right time.
So with these racing, like the SCCA, that was on a track with a lot of turns and cones
Mhm.
and stuff, right? What is your main favorite type of racing? Is it on an oval track like the Indy 500? Is it on those more twists and turns? What is the goal? What's your main thing? Like that's my jam.
Yeah. I've done 2 types of tracks, so I haven't done the 3rd one. I've done road courses and I've done some oval work, but I've not done a street course, which is, like, where they take you downtown and they set up barriers and stuff and you actually race where you would normally park your car kind of a thing. I haven't really done the street racing, but the road course is where my heart is. Like, I love left and right turns both. They're just so fun, but more than that, I love the technical aspects and how much it works your brain. Like, with working with an oval, it's kind of more an endurance situation. And even with a road course, there, don't get me wrong, there's lots of endurance involved, but it's more technical. And I would say it has more of that anaerobic feeling versus aerobic.
And now, in back in the day, like in the say the 50s, 60s, even into the 70s, a lot of the race car drivers, from big to small, they would race in multiple different kinds of cars, which I always think the more that you're behind the seat, especially in the different kinds of tracks. I mean, even if you're doing things like going up Pikes Peak, right? It's gonna
Mhm.
make you just a more comprehensive overall driver. But today, and maybe this is due to finances, but rarely do you see anybody who's doing multiple different kinds of racing. Do you wanna do other kinds of racing, or are you pretty focused on this IndyCar, and getting out there?
Yeah, I like other kinds of cars. I like racing in general. So, any excuse that I can have to get in a car, I will definitely take it. But with that same token, to be in an elite level, like driving these Indy cars or driving, in a formula car, even competitively, you have to dedicate so much of your time, so much of your training, and even your mental aspect to that. So, to be good in a formula car, you kinda have to focus on being good in a formula style car, and that's definitely been my training and my upbringing thus far, and I've really enjoyed that.
So, when you're just in your regular car driving around town, what
Mhm.
do you notice or, like, what's different in life because you're a race car driver, and how do you look at all the crazy jackasses that are out on the road?
Yes, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you probably go like 100 miles an hour down the highway and all this stuff." And as I do struggle to keep my speed under control, I was taught my dad was a super crazy strict man on how we drove on the highway and on street cars. And I really do believe that he had a very good point now, like you mentioned, being in the racing world and seeing how quickly things happen. It makes me so much more vigilant into seeing how things can get away from other people who might not be focusing as much as in a race. And so when I'm out just driving in the streets and whatnot, I always am scanning and looking for cars and specifically reading drivers. That's something that I've really noticed that's different from me versus like a normal everyday driver is I'm constantly looking at drivers when we're coming up to a stop sign and I'm making sure that they see me and that it looks like they are prepared to stay there until I go, like personality reading basically.
Yeah, and when you're out on the racetrack, there's probably nobody messing around on their cell phone.
That's such a good point. Yes, nobody's doing that.
Alright, so how long did you spend in the Mazda cars before we take that next leap?
Yeah, I spent about a year and a half to 2 years in that Formula Mazda.
'Kay, and then what's the catalyst or what's the moment that you're like, "Time to level up again and get into these Indy cars?" Then we're gonna really crack into that because that's kind of your centerpiece and your jam.
Absolutely, yeah. It was actually that SCCA Majors Tour event that I have talked about so significantly. It was that point when my crew was like, "Wow, we let's move on. There's nothing left to be done here in the Formula Mazda. We can take on a big next step."
Now now, take me through that first day that you went to the IndyCar, the tell me about from the moment you woke up that day to sitting down in that car and getting on the track. Fill me in.
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 stories with the IndyCar. There's the first time that I've ever been in an IndyCar, which took place right after I got my Formula Ford 1600 test. So I had very minimal car expertise. I had barely driven in, like, a shifter, a Mazda Miata. I had barely had anything, and I had met my team, and they were like, "Come out, we've got Indy cars, come try it out." And this story is just every time I say it, I always think I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, that's the way it is," but no, it's just so surreal to me every time that I talk about this story. They ended up bringing me out for 3 laps, and they're like, "Literally, your goal is to start the car competently, get it on the track, and don't crash with 3 laps and bring it in nothing damaged." And they're like, "We don't care how slow you go. You can go 5 miles an hour if you can, but just don't wreck anything." And so they threw me in that Indy car, and I did the whole 3 laps. I brought it in, like A plus plus. And everyone's like, "How did you feel? How was it?" And my response was, it felt like home. Like it just felt so cozy and like this is where I'm supposed to be.
And so how much did you get on it for those 3 laps that you were out there? And what did the car feel like, and what was the difference of moving? I would imagine there's a significant difference every time you level up to the next car.
Absolutely. An IndyCar is such a beast because it is so light compared to the power that it has. Like, even getting in a Charger or a Mustang or even a Lamborghini, it's nothing in comparison to an IndyCar because of that weight to power ratio. So when I first got into that car, that was the first thing that I noticed was just how incredibly powerful it was. And to me, that gave me a sense of responsibility. It made me want to really slow things down and be cautious with how I handled
Was there, like, a certain aha moment that day when you were like, "Alright, I belong here. This is right."
it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I took off, they had talked my team, they had talked a lot about how difficult the IndyCar clutches are, and they weren't wrong. Like, the throw is like an inch, which for all you car gurus know how difficult that is when you're talking about running an 800 horsepower car that you need to get off the block. And everyone's like, "You're gonna stall it. Don't worry about it. Just don't get frustrated." But I took off that very first time, and when I actually realized it was definitely delayed, but when I had realized that, wow, I had gotten off the block first try, I was like, this is it. This is where I need to be. This is everything that I want. This is where I belong."
And that was while you were still at the track. How about when you went home that night and you were, reviewing everything from your day and laying your head down to sleep? What were your thoughts about racing at that point?
Absolutely. My head was spinning 1,000 miles an hour. Like, when I got home, it was just, like, reeling about if this was provided, if God had blessed me with this, like, what else can happen? What else is coming? Like, I am so over the moon and excited for the next thing that I can experience because this experience was unreal.
And so every time you're leveling up now, I would think that there's more of the technicalities of racing.
Mhm.
How does that start to play out, and where did that really start to set into your driving style? Looking at the analytics and the different tires and just all of those crazy things that are so, so important.
Yeah, it significantly grew, and my methodical side really showed itself when I moved to the IndyCar. My consultant at that point was telling me that when you get to the level of like an IndyCar, it really moves to a a highly weighted side of how much you actually be in the car compared to striving and working to get back in the car. And what I mean by that is when you're in go-karts, you get to spend 90% of your time out just on track, getting all the seat time that you possibly can get in, reeling and just having a great time in every little piece out there. But you only probably have to spend maybe 10% of the time working to pay for it or, whatever you need to do for sponsors and marketing and whatnot at that point. At the point that I was at in IndyCar, my consultant was like, when you get to this point, it's really about 90% of the time you need to be out working, getting sponsors, doing your job, and then 10% you get to come drive in the car and get your bonus check.
I think a lot of people do not realize that side of the racing and how darn important it is. With
Absolutely. Yeah.
with your pops being such a big influential, part of racing, do you do something to, like, kinda honor him or take something of him in the car on your uniform or something like that to make it so he's kinda with you every race that you're at?
Absolutely. Wow, this is my dad. He's just such a big part of racing for me. And so it's such an emotional thing to talk about bringing him into racing. And I actually got asked, the other day that if I do ever make it pro, how would your dad imagine how would it be with having your dad there? And if if you do get to do some of these things, like how would you feel having your dad here instead of up in heaven? And that just it brings me to tears just to think about all of that. My dad and I, every single race, every time before I would go out, he would always pull me aside and we would just say a quick little prayer before I even got in the car. And that is something that I want to carry with me throughout everything in the future that I do, whether that be these massive, huge races or whether that be coaching somebody else to make their career happen. I would love to just say a quick little prayer before going out on track.
Awesome, 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 and I'm sure that he's, sitting up there watching down on you the entire race too, which has to give you a nice warm feeling in that seat.
Absolutely.
Alright, you're presenting yourself as more than just a driver now. Why is that so important for you?
Yeah, this is a giant question. When I first started out in go-karts and lower level cars, it was all about what I could complete as a driver, what I could do to prove myself. And over time, over many, many trials and deep sorrows, I had learned that racing actually isn't everything in life, even though my teenage self highly disagreed with that comment. And throughout these life things, I have learned that racing is a privilege and it is what I get to do, but it's not who I am. And so throughout my life and throughout the development of my career and my comeback story, I've been able to bring in that side, to bring in how important God is in my life, how important family is, and how important loving others can be rather than having the fastest lap on track.
And what does living by faith actually look like for you in a sport that's, so uncertain?
Absolutely. I don't think I actually fully know the answer to this question. Every time I think about living by faith, it comes from the verse Hebrews 11:1, now being sure of things unseen and certain of the things that we hope for. And I had originally picked this verse and this mantra, if you may, from a really young age, from back when I had first started karting, really. And I didn't know what living by faith would really bring out of me and how far God would really embed that into my life. But it has just shown itself so prominent. And like you mentioned, coming back into the comeback story that creates such a deepening of faith. My husband, he likes to refer it to kind of like the Israelites, if you're familiar with some of the Bible story and how they were out and they were promised this beautiful land, but they had to walk in this desert for so long. And my husband likes to say that we're a little bit in walking in the wilderness right now, that we don't know exactly what that promised land is going to look like. We don't know when it's going to exactly arrive or show up, but we know that we have been promised this amazing thing. And we are just stepping out in faith in God to bring everything to fruition that He's promised and in that things that we hope for.
So now let's kinda jump into the harder chapter. Your path hasn't always really been just like a full straight line. Tell me about the hard years and how that changed you.
Yes, there has been so many hard years that there is not enough time on this world to explain the things that I've experienced and to explain how that's changed me and shaped me. But I will dive into the surface part of it. When I was late high school, I had gotten really sick. Like, I had gotten my blood sugar results were way off, and I had just gotten to feeling super fatigued. And nobody really knew why. They had diagnosed me with, random stuff. But I had went to see an endocrinologist, and he's like, this doesn't make any sense that somebody like you who's young and healthy should have all of these diseases and these diagnoses. And so I ended up over several months needing to get MRIs done to check on my brain. And there and behold, I had a tumor in my pituitary gland, which, if you don't know, the pituitary gland is the tiniest little spot in the innermost part of your brain. And it's what controls basically all your hormones, all of your personality basically. And I had went and I got moved over after we found this tumor to a very specialized doctor, and I had went to see him, and he's like, it's definitely growing. This had been after months and months of, follow-ups, MRIs, all of the things. He said it's not cancerous, but it really looks like we're going to have to remove this eventually. And when I had gotten that news, of course, my parents and I at that point are like, what does this even mean? What is this going to look like? You're a surgeon. Just get in there and take it out. And he's like, of course, yes, I'm a surgeon. I love this. I'll take it out tomorrow if you want. But what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to tell you to go home and to bide your time as much as you can. Because when I go in, the place that this is at and how it's in there, there is absolutely no way that you are going to walk away the same person. Your personality is going to change. Everything that you decide, the things you like, the things you dislike, it's going to completely change. And I remember walking down from that appointment, and my parents and I just sat down at a table in the cafe in the hospital there. And I just started crying because it felt like I was losing this person that I had been my whole life, like that I was dying because this person was going to no longer exist in a matter of probably months. And my parents and I, at that point, we decided to go back and to pray over it because literally we had no other options. Like, this was one of the top specialists in the world. Like, we've done all of our research. We've asked all the questions. This is our option. And so we prayed, and honestly, I had a lack of faith, to be honest, even in my prayer. I went back in for my 3-month follow-up on this tumor, and lo and behold, there was no tumor. And the doctors are like, "What? Like, this is unreal. This can't be happening. Like, somebody mixed up something. This is somebody else's brain. This isn't yours. Something happened." So they sent me back in. I did more tests, no tumor. All the blood samples, came back completely normal. All the other diagnoses that I had had went back to normal, and the doctor, the surgeon that was gonna actually remove the tumor was absolutely shaken, and he was like, "I don't know what you did. I don't know if you believe in God or if you prayed or what God you believe in, but whatever you did is real. That happened, and that changed everything." It was literally a living miracle that I had just had in real time. So that was a pretty big substantial part in my life that I was like, "Wow, okay, God, I hear you. I hear that you're real. Let's do some cool stuff now." And then it was like a flip of a switch and something else bad happened. And then a couple years later, and something else bad happened, all the way to a few years back when I had actually pulled back from racing a little bit and I needed to have a heart ablation. I was having horrible chronic fatigue. They had diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, like no fix. I was pretty much bedridden, to be honest, for months on top of months. I found out my dad had cancer that was unfixable, and he had a mere, like, 3 months to live. Within that time frame, I had also found out that my crew chief got COVID and unexpectedly within a few weeks passed away. And then a few months later, my consultant actually got sick and passed away that nobody saw coming. And then my dad, although he did have many more years, he actually had 5 years with us instead of 3 months, which is a miracle in and of itself, but he ended up passing away. And so having all of these things just stack up all at once, the heart, the my dad, my crew chief, my consultant, it just felt like the world was dropping in on me. But throughout all of these trials, one thing remained the same, and God never abandoned me through any of those times. And actually, God had very much shown himself very prominently to me in a way that most people don't get to experience. And so I got to see God and understand Jesus in a way that never will shake my faith in the future. And I knock on wood saying that because I know that there can be many trials in the future, but I do believe that no matter how bad life gets, that God's gonna be there and we're gonna do it together.
Yeah, seems like you've had a whole bunch of them thrown into your path, and with having the faith that you do, and f the
Mhm.
first the brain tumor part would probably set you up to believe the rest of the time, but it might have been hard when you started getting another club over the head and another club over the head, and, what did all these setbacks
Yeah.
do to your identity as a person? Not so much maybe on just the religious side, but for you as a person waking up every day and living your life and having to just steady the path.
Yeah, well, I am human just like every other person on this planet, and so the tumor, even though I had such a miraculous outcome and story, I had a tendency to forget how good God was through that and how prominent he was and the miracles he chose. Like, as time went on, I would start making excuses in my head, like, "Was that really God? Or was it some mistake?" You know, all these little things and lies that get put into your head. But through time and time again, like I mentioned, God just continued to reinforce how close and how good he truly is. For me, though, on the human aspect, aside from, falling into those tendencies of forgetting about the goodness of God, I had massive depression, to be honest. I had great anxiety going through high school. I was anorexic for a short period of time. A lot of it ended up coming back to a control thing for me, that I couldn't control these things that were going wrong. I couldn't control my health. I couldn't control these life situations of these loved ones leaving me. And so I could control how I felt. I could control what I did throughout the day. I could control what I ate. And so that's how the ugly part of my human side showed itself. But it also gave me a lot of time to relax, to spend time with my friends and family. I'm sure a lot of drivers out there who are in the karting series or low level cars even know how much of a toll being involved in racing can take on your schedule. And that often means that you don't have time to spend it with friends. You don't have time to spend it with family. Like the holidays are spent at the track, not eating Thanksgiving dinner, not celebrating, shooting off fireworks. And so this time actually provided a great benefit to be able to experience those things with my friends and family.
Mm. And what do you feel like the hardships kinda stripped away from you, and what did it reveal? Stripped away.
Yeah, everything. It stripped everything away from me. There was a point in going through one of these trials that I literally remember falling on my knees, thinking and praying, "Just let me die. I don't want to live anymore. I don't believe that God is real. If he was real, then he would not allow these bad things to happen to me." And I just crumbled to my knees. I had no physical strength. I had no motivation to keep going. And I just prayed a prayer and I said, "God, if you're real, you've got to do something. Like, I'm done. I'm done for. I have nothing left, nothing to hope for. I have no purpose. I have no passion. I can't function at all." And within a day, Jesus literally came and shielded me from physical abuse. He shielded me from spiritual and emotional abuse, things that people um, can't even wrap their mind around was happening and was going on. And God literally said, "Take me, do me instead. I will take this. I will take the abuse so that you can be free, so that you can be healed." And from that moment, it was a snap of the fingers. I started to heal. Life wasn't perfect. Life wasn't all rainbows and sunshine for sure, but I could start getting myself back. I could start functioning and wanting to live life again.
I'm a big follower of Stoic philosophy. It's, done a lot to
Mm,
kinda really make me mellow, and the one thing that you said,
mm,
like, really, really lined up with that when all of that stuff was going bananas and you went and you took control of the only thing you could, which was yourself and your mind because you can't control anything else. So, really
yeah,
neat. And now
thank you.
let's jump to the happy time. I'm thinking
Yes.
the comeback chapter, the right now. What does this comeback chapter look like today?
I am just so over the moon every single day, and I'm very much an emotional roller coaster. Like, my husband jokes about it every single day because he's like, "There's high highs and there's low lows, and I'm gonna feel every single piece of it." So I literally will start the morning just reveling in how amazing it is to be able to be coming back to racing, to be able to have been in the place that I was and still be able to get back into my car somehow, to get back on track, to have all these things lining out. And then I'll get a call from my mechanic and he'll be like, "Yeah, that crankshaft that we ordered 2 years ago, yeah, it's, got a crack in it, and we have to have a brand new custom one made." And so then I'll just be, like, coming down off the hill, just completely plummet and have all kinds of anxiety and be like, "Ah, this is it. We're done for. We can't do anything anymore." That human side of me coming back into having a lack of faith. And then something else will happen and it will be amazing and I'll be on the highest high and literally just have this permagrin going on. So it's definitely it's a big roller coaster, but it's a great one for sure.
Yeah. I think that's a very human nature thing, and, trying to not let your highs be too high and your lows be too low, super important, especially when you're doing something important, and life challenging, like going real fast in a race car. What
Yeah.
what are we driving now? What's this season of, racing taking you to? And tell me a little bit about it, and you can go into some detail about this one.
Yes, I am super excited because there are so many things knocking on the door to happen next. But first of all, we are getting my car back up and running. So that's the 1996 vintage Indy car. And so once that is up and running, I will be back in the seat, driving, testing, getting back up to speed to where I was from working with my past crew chief. And I am super excited because we have a lot of hopes to be joining this series called Vintage Indy. And it's an incredible series because it's where you get to basically follow like the NTT IndyCar series, the Indy Next, all of them. We get to follow where they go for the races and literally be paddocked right next to them. And then we will just plan to go on the track before they do, and we'll get to have our session. We'll get to go out there, have our expedition laps, and then come in and see all the fans and let people realize how different these cars actually were from back in 96 compared to what they are now.
Yeah, so cool. Mike Lashmet, from Vintage Indy. Absolutely,
Y
super fun interview. I've been to his facility multiple times. Really, really
Awesome.
nice fellow with a great story too. Um,
Yes.
so what does returning mean to you in this season of life compared to what it meant earlier?
This season of life means taking it one step at a time and just having faith that God is going to show the next thing when it's time for the next thing. So, right now, it looks like a lot of unknowns. And before, that used to make me super uncomfortable. I used to be a control freak and, I want to know this and this, and I want to organize everything, but that's just not the case right now. And so it's just a lot of taking things slow and just relying on God that he's going to provide the next step.
And you're gonna be out there on the track with the likes of, Ted Warner, who's in the Swede Savage's, rebuilt car. I believe you're in a Lola. Tell me a little bit about the history of the car, that you have.
Yes. So my car was raced obviously in 96 and a little bit in 97, I believe. Eddie Lawson was the main driver on this car, and he raced it some as a backup car. So basically, he wouldn't take it on the track unless something happened to his main car. But then he also raced it as his main car, and so he would have it out there. And I was actually talking to my mechanic last night. I've actually got a little bit of modifications on my car with not having like an oval setup. I have a road course setup on it. And so we have those kind of wings and that body work on it. But the engine has since been obviously modified. Like we can't run the same thing that they were running in 96 because that long blew up forever ago. So right now, I have a small Chevy block actually in my car that my mechanic has highly modified and made very cool.
Racing is a super expensive sport, and to make it viable, you have to have a buy-in. Um, what
Yes.
does, what does success, first of all, look like for you right now in this Vintage Indy series?
Success would be showing up to the races, to go out there, have a clean run for nothing to break, come back in, not have any like scuffles out there or anything, and that would be A plus plus. Everything worked out perfectly.
Are there any other women that are in the Vintage Indy series?
I believe there actually are, which is super surprising to me. I was talking to Michael, and he was saying that, yeah, there's actually some daughters and some, I think maybe even granddaughters that have taken on the passion of this vintage racing. So it's really cool to hear that.
What kind of partners or opportunities fit with this, mission that you're on right now? What are you looking for?
I am looking, obviously, for amazing sponsors, ones that really tie up and can have the same belief system that I do, and I know that that's a long stretch, but I definitely wanna partner with somebody who can really buy into their mantra and that they can buy into mine. I don't wanna do anything halfway. I want to be able to literally link arms and to have a win-win situation. And so I'm specifically looking out there for sponsors who are particular to my story, who find it very intriguing and who want to get behind something like that. And I'm looking for obviously those that would like to take that next step with me in racing. There's so many options, like I've mentioned, for next steps. But there's, of course, the whole IMSA scene, which is kind of the sports car scene. There's Indy Next and some lower cars in like the IndyCar ladder board. There's stuff even over in Europe. So many options of things that can open doors for many sponsors.
Yeah. And what does a sponsorship look like? I mean, sponsoring race cars is really expensive, and a lot of times I think that, the companies maybe have like a "what's in it for me?" What does the activation and what does it look like for somebody who's working with you? What do they get out of it?
Absolutely. I fully believe that if it's not a good situation and a good buy for you as a company, that you should not do it. And I personally would not promote that to you. I always try to look at a situation when I'm branding it or trying to promote it to a sponsor of would I would do this if it was my business? And if the answer is no, then I really step back from that because it's a lot of money and it's a lot of gamble, if you may, a high risk situation, but the return is it's unparalleled. It is so cool. I mean, I love to use the example of Danica Patrick and GoDaddy. Literally, GoDaddy was somebody that nobody really knew, and that GoDaddy was not being marketed that high. And then they partnered with Danica, and not only did they start getting seen, were they able to be marketed and in front of people, but they created this warm-hearted feeling to GoDaddy directly because of Danica. Fans had this connection with Danica Patrick. They loved her. They wanted to be like her. They wanted to grow up to be her, and that directly correlated to GoDaddy. And so that is my goal. I want to be able to create a direct correlation from me to sponsor that when they think of me as a driver, they think of this company that I'm partnered with. And it's not just thinking about this company as, oh, yeah, I'll go down to blah, blah, blah and purchase this product. It's a, I love that. I wanna be invested in that. I wanna connect more with that. How can I be involved and with that company more? And so that would be my goal with partnering with a company is it's a much bigger view. It's all about branding and how you look to people more so than just getting your face in front of somebody.
Yep. And to that point, you've kinda synced up now with Ralph Hansen Jr. and Pegasus Marketing, um, who's he was one of my fraternity brothers, obviously from a slightly different
Nice.
era, but, do you know all about his story? Like
I know only a small portion, but the portion that I know is unreal. Like, he has worked with incredible drivers. He's literally gotten, like, the Kmart stuff. Like, he got all of that rolling. Like, the impact that he has made in the racing community is unreal. So incredible to be a part of a program and a partnership with him.
Yep. And I think maybe one of the reasons that you 2 fit so well together is he was the person who brought cause marketing into racing, and it seems to really align a lot with your faith and what you're doing. Who are some of the people that he's been introducing you to on that side of the world to, as far as sponsors?
Yes. Well, I don't want to spill all the beans because I love to keep things hush hush until they actually happen. Let the actions speak louder than the words. But he has connected me with some incredible people in M1 Concourse. They're doing some incredible events later this year with LROC, which is an incredible female event. And so we're looking to possibly join them and come on the scene. Pippa Mann is going to be there. And we've talked a little bit to Lynn St. Jean. We've talked to, this person and that person. But like I said, I like to keep things a little mysterious until they all happen.
Fair, 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 fair. Okay, so if everything clicks and we're just keep moving forward, what does this next chapter of your life look like?
If everything goes as I hope they go, I would love to race something this next year that would be highly visible, like raise awareness through media and establish me more on that end of things. The program that I've been in has been purely driving training, and it's been all about setting me up to be really good and then come on the scene already really good. And so that's been really cool. But the downside to that is that my media and all of that is not been promoted as much. And so the next goals for the next year, I would love to see that really take off and that really go so that we can offer a little bit more to sponsors and that we can make really cool deals on that aspect happen. Obviously, the end goal for me has always been an IndyCar, like professional ride, current in the NTT IndyCar series. But like I said, who knows if that's what's God planned or if He has something else up His sleeve.
Yep, and knowing that we're only kind of in the middle of the book right now, most likely. And so I know there are kind of our last point that we're going to stop on here is the social media aspect. Race car drivers back in the olden days didn't have to do this. Maybe you would be hoping that somebody interviewed you to put you in a newspaper, or for goodness sakes, if you could get on television, that would be even bigger. What's kind of your story behind what you do for social media, and where can people find you to follow you on that?
Yes. Well, I am not technology savvy. I have definitely been thrown into the media world feeling like I'm drowning a little bit, but that's okay. I have a whole bunch of people helping me out. My husband is my tech guru. I like to call him my IT man. So he's always on board helping me out. But media, I'm definitely a lot more quiet on it than a lot of like influencers. And that's okay because I think when you come there, you'll find a lot of meat to the story and a lot of meat to the posts and captions that I'm actually providing. So you can find me right now on Instagram and Facebook, which is just my name, Mianna Wick. And then on Facebook, it's Mianna Wick Racing. But that'll get you to those two sites. And of course, I'm always growing. So always coming up with new ways to reach you guys via media. But those are the two main ways. And then, of course, my website, which has all my backstory and all the fun things on it, which is MiannaWickRacing.com.
Thank you so much, Mianna, for sitting down and telling me your story. It's going to be really fun to watch you. I can't imagine how cool it's going to be to drive that 96 Lola. And
So
pedal to the metal, Godspeed, go fast, and get some flags.
yes, thank you so much.